I focused on how Sharia-based tribunals will jeopardize America's rights to equal protection and due process under the law, particularly in cases involving women and minors. We learned that the presence of Sharia-based tribunals in the United States date back decades, and that it is common practice for these tribunals to stray from traditional judicial proceedings, meaning that participants risk losing protections guaranteed under the Constitution. In light of the disaster of the open border Biden administration, have you seen an increase in the attempt to enforce or impose Sharia law in the United States?
Absolutely, because within these communities, they are also, they're absorbing the refugees coming in.
Issues, but it is bizarre to me to listen to this hearing. Honestly, now we've suddenly made all mosques the beachhead of terrorism across the country. This is a very important religion around the world, and certainly here in the United States, Islam is a very, very important religion. I have a lot of respect for the chairman of this committee. We work together on a lot of issues, but it is bizarre to me to listen to this hearing. Honestly, now we've suddenly made all mosques the beachhead of terrorism across the country. This is a very important religion around the world, and certainly here in the United States, Islam is a very, very important religion. And I go to Mr. Cohen's comments about why we're holding this hearing again. This is a redo, by the way. We've done this before. We're doing it again at a time when we have so many pressing issues that we should be addressing in the Constitution Subcommittee. We have the issue of voting rights, the gutting of voting rights by the Supreme Court, the dilution of the black vote in the United States, which should be at the top of our list to talk about. We have the unconstitutional war in Iran that has now cost at least $29 billion of taxpayer money that we have not had a single hearing on. There's lots of things that we could be talking about, but see, the problem is if we were to talk about any of those things, you would actually have to acknowledge how incredibly unpopular Republican policies have been in driving up the price of gas in this country. In my home state, it's almost $6 for a gallon of regular, almost $7 for a gallon of diesel. You'd have to address the rising cost of fertilizer, of groceries, the fact that Republicans stripped health care away from millions of Americans. People cannot afford health care in the United States of America, the richest country in the world. We have 90 million Americans who are either uninsured, no insurance at all, or underinsured, meaning they have some form of insurance, but it's not enough to pay their medical bills. And that is why we have $220 billion of medical debt in the United States of America. $220 billion. And this hearing is unfortunately just part of a much larger anti-Muslim, anti-Islam strategy that Republicans have been trying to drive.
Thank you. In our previous hearing on this topic, I focused on how Sharia-based tribunals will jeopardize America's rights to equal protection and due process under the law, particularly in cases involving women and minors. We learned that the presence of Sharia-based tribunals in the United States date back decades, and that it is common practice for these tribunals to stray from traditional judicial proceedings, meaning that participants risk losing protections guaranteed under the Constitution, as was just being debated. One example of such a tribunal operating near Dallas before altering its website actually prided itself on being a unique institution of its kind in the United States, with the intention of setting a precedent that would be emulated and duplicated throughout the country. That same tribunal further claimed that, quote, conflicting problems within American Muslim society may range from personal and family matters, such as marriage and divorce, as well as disputes among community members and those in positions of leadership. The courts of the United States of America are costly and consist of ineffective lawyers, end quote. To be clear, conformity to the Constitution is the governing factor behind the operation of our judicial system. The 5th, 6th, 7th, and 14th Amendments are there to ensure that everyone has a right to a fair trial. While the First Amendment is intended to ensure that every American citizen can practice the religion of their choosing, it does not permit any parallel tribunal or body to supersede the role of our judiciary in the protections of those constitutional rights. Ms. Meckelberg, Sharia-based tribunals often label themselves as offering voluntary services, but is it not true that individuals have been coerced into using these bodies because of social, familial, and other community pressures?
Yes, I was actually saying earlier that right now in communities all across Texas, all across different places throughout the United States, from birth to death, they now have full operational societies that somebody could actually be born in America and never have to operate outside of and deal with any kind of non-Muslim. So within these societies, they have their courts. And if you notice, most of the imams that are the heads that are coming from outside the country are Sharia judges. And these Sharia judges hand down these different, they use many different names. They will say that they're an imam, they're a Sharia expert, a Sharia jurist, etc. But if you go and you look, these are the people who are acting as the judges within these communities. And there's an entire organization around this. If you look up the Assembly Muslim of Jurists in America, they're issuing fatwas. We have fiqh council people who are also, again, that's a Sharia judge. These are people who are putting out fatwas that you can kill apostates, blasphemers. This is happening inside America. And again,
that's clearly a violation of the Constitution and the rights of the individuals who are involved in those tribunals, correct?
Correct.
All right. And another characteristic of American courts is generally the presence of robust oversight. We have court records, decisions are easily accessible, attorneys are present, and the transcripts of proceedings are properly recorded so that we know what happens in our court system. Would you please explain how does this oversight compare to the operation of a Sharia-based tribunal?
This is handled inside the community, so you'll never know of any of these things. And that's the problem that I always have with we say, when I say we're failing children and we're failing minorities and women, and things are happening in these communities that nobody ever knows of. And there is no voice for the little girl who's being born in this community. She doesn't even know what her rights are in this country that she's being born into. So again, she is answering to her family, she is answering to her imam, and she is answering to the person who is the expert in Sharia within her community.
But at the same time, she's not able to fully exercise the constitutional rights that have been bestowed on her.
Absolutely not.
So in terms of, are there judgments or rulings cataloged? Are they consistent from one imam to another one, or one Sharia-based judiciary to another one?
Yes, and I think that's why when you look up the assembly, this one body, they're handing out the different legal, it's the legal arm within inside the community. But again, are there different variations that different people follow at times? But that's why they have, and again, if you look up the fiqh council where Yasser Qadi is the head of, or you look up a place like Amja where they're pushing out these different fatwas that all the mosques are following, it does act as the governing body, the legal body, I'm sorry.
Just very quickly, in light of the disaster of the open border Biden administration, have you seen an increase in the attempt to enforce or impose Sharia law in the United States?
Absolutely, because within these communities, they are also, they're absorbing the refugees coming in. That's what they're hoping for, to increase the numbers.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. I yield back.
What happens when religious arbitration collides with the United States Constitution? That question ignited one of the most heated House Judiciary Committee hearings in recent memory. Representative Harriet Hageman walked into that room with one clear mission: defend the Constitution, protect equal protection and due process for every American. On the other side sat Representative Pramila Jayapal, who tried to dismiss the hearing as a waste of time. She wanted to talk about gas prices and health care. Anything except the uncomfortable truth sitting right in front of her. But Hageman did not flinch. She dropped truth bomb after truth bomb. Hit that like, subscribe, and share button, and let's get into it. Hageman opened by exposing how Sharia-based tribunals jeopardize equal protection and due process, particularly for women and minors. She pointed to a tribunal near Dallas that called American courts costly and full of ineffective lawyers. Then she laid down the constitutional hammer. The First Amendment protects religious freedom, but it does not permit any parallel tribunal to supersede constitutional protections. Jayapal tried to derail the conversation by calling the hearing anti-Muslim, but Hageman never attacked Islam. She attacked the idea that any system could operate above the Constitution. The witness confirmed the danger: entire communities operating parallel societies with their own courts and judges, rulings that violate constitutional rights, especially for women and children. Then Hageman asked the question the left refuses to answer. The open border is fueling the expansion of parallel legal systems that operate outside the Constitution. Jayapal wanted to talk about gas prices. Hageman shifted to transparency. American courts are open and accountable. Sharia tribunals operate in secret. No oversight. No due process. No equal protection. Hageman made the devastating point that there is no voice for the little girl born into these communities. She never learns her constitutional rights. She answers to her family, her imam, the Sharia expert. She never learns she is free. Jayapal continued her desperate distraction: gas prices, healthcare, voting rights, everything except the issue, because she cannot defend secret tribunals operating outside American law. By the end, Hageman argued Congress must remain vigilant. Jayapal argued lawmakers should focus elsewhere. But conservatives see the truth. The open border is fueling parallel legal systems that operate in secret. No due process, no equal protection, no constitutional rights. Hageman exposed it all. She did not attack Islam. She attacked the idea that any system could operate above the Constitution. Jayapal had no answer. So, she changed the subject. The Constitution is the supreme law. It applies to everyone, and it will be defended. The mainstream media will not show this. So share it. Hit that subscribe button. Tell me what you think in the comments. Smash that like button. And I will see you in the next breakdown.